Hey guys, I'm your host Tara A. Devlin, and welcome to this week's episode of Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. My latest book, Kowabana Volume 13, is now out. Collecting even more of your favourite stories from the show, you can find terrifying ghosts, cruel curses, haunted buildings, weird monsters, and much, much more. You can find that on Amazon right now and help support the show at the same time. This week, we're looking at some stories on both land and sea of encounters with things that are, quite frankly, just a little too bizarre to fully understand. First up, a young boy explores an abandoned shrine in the mountains and finds something odd up there. What exactly is it? Find out in Shrine Yokai. I don't really believe in ghosts, but I'm certain that yokai exist. Throughout my life, I've seen a yokai twice, and I'd like to tell you about one of those times. I think I was in the 5th grade at the time. My grandfather passed away from cancer, so we rushed back to the countryside of the Tohoku region. The funeral went as planned, and as the adults were clearing stuff up, they told me to go for a walk. I decided to look around the mountain behind my grandparents' house. I'd climbed this mountain numerous times before, so I knew my way around and wouldn't get lost. I looked around here and there all by myself. I must have been walking for about 30 minutes when I saw a shrine gate in the distance. Come to think of it, I always used to look out the car window at all the shrine gates on the mountain. Why are there so many shrines on that mountain? I thought to myself strangely. Anyway, I was getting bored by that point, so I decided to check out the closest shrine gate. When I stood beneath it, countless steps extended up the mountain from it. Honestly, I was pretty tired after all the walking, but I had come all this way, so I thought I should at least have a quick look before returning. I started up the stairs, and when I finally reached the top, I looked around. There was nothing but an old, run-down building that didn't even look like it was a temple. Well, yeah, I guess that'll happen if you build something so deep into the mountains, I said with a laugh. I didn't find it especially creepy, and I approached it to pray. Then I heard water running behind the building. I ran around the back and, just as I expected, there was a shallow river. It was a fantastic place to play. Oh wow, this is great. I should bring everyone here next time, I thought. And then I stepped into the water and kicked it around for a while. But then I saw something moving on the other side of the river. Whoa, is that a bear? Crap, what should I do? I trembled in fear, but then slowly it stepped out from behind the trees. I don't know how to describe it, but the closest thing I could find online was that it looked like a mandragora. At a glance, it looked like a tree, but it was moving, and the roots at the bottom were moving and twisting like a snake. It was around the same size as a person, or maybe a little bigger. Its head was shaped like a 4-leaf clover, and there was something that looked like a mouth. Its lower body was just like a tree trunk, and the legs were like countless roots twisting and turning like snakes. Sorry if that's kind of hard to understand. That's the best I can do. At any rate, this creature I'd never seen before was moving around right in front of me. Of course, I took off running back down the mountain as fast as I could. I ran into the house and explained to my older sister and cousin the best I could. I was frantic and was like, "There was this creature! It was dangerous!" and stuff like that. Of course, they both laughed at me. My sister was too busy reading a comic to care about what I was saying, and my cousin laughed so much he almost doubled over. Well then, I'd just have to show them the real thing, I thought. I dragged them outside and up the mountain. We went to the shrine gate, up the stairs, and then around the back of the shrine. I peeked from the shadows so the creature wouldn't see me, and it was still there. My sister and cousin were still complaining, so I dragged them around to the rear and pointed the creature out to them. They both stared in shock. My cousin's mouth fell open and he couldn't move. "Crap, let's get out of here," my sister said, however, and she took off running. We quickly followed her all the way back down to the house. Next thing I knew, the fear was gone. I was just excited. Like, this creature I'd never seen before was most definitely there, and we all saw it. "Let's check it out again tomorrow," I said. But my sister didn't agree. "I don't think we should go there again," she said. "We must have seen it wrong. It was just the wind blowing through the trees." And after that, she didn't speak of the creature again. 20 years have passed since then, but when I brought it up with her again recently, she just said, "I forgot all about it." It was a blatant lie, but either way, 5 years after we saw it that time, I went back there alone. I wanted to prove once and for all that we weren't seeing things, and that creature was real. I took a camera with me and returned to that spot alone. The shrine gate was still there, and once I climbed the stairs, the shrine building should be at the top. But once I got there, all I could see were weeds. There were so many that I couldn't see the shrine. And there were so many bees buzzing around that it was like they were trying to scare me away from the building. I couldn't get close to it. But if you think about it normally, 5 years prior, there were no weeds, which meant that someone was looking after the place. And there was no way that the people who ran the shrine didn't know about that creature's existence. As such, I asked a local about it. "I saw something strange near that shrine once," I said, and their face clearly screwed up. "Don't ever go near it again," they said. The locals must know of its existence as well, but no matter how much I asked, they wouldn't tell me more than that. The children in this next story are told of a creature who will come down from the mountains if they're not back home before dark. They don't believe it to be true, but when a classmate encounters something scarily similar, they're left wondering if maybe it's not just a tale. Find out why in Old Man Gongon. There's an old tale where I'm from that tells of something called Old Man Gongon. As the story goes, if children are still playing outside when the temple rings the bell at night, Old Man Gongon will come down from the mountain and kidnap them. When he appears, he'll say, "Didn't you hear the gong, gong?" And that's why they call him Old Man Gongon. He's a fairly ordinary cautionary tale. So, when I was in the 3rd grade, there was some talk of a suspicious person who had been seen around. It started when a girl from my grade was approached by a homeless-looking old man, who then grabbed her when she was on her way home from piano lessons. This was followed by another 2 or 3 similar incidents, so the school handed out cautionary leaflets, and both police and members of the PTA patrolled as students walked to and from school. Our little countryside town was generally rather peaceful, so I remember everyone getting quite upset about it. And whether it was correct or not, it became a common story that the man who grabbed the girl from our class was actually Old Man Gongon. At the time, I had a secret base at the foot of a small hill that I built with 3 of my friends. We often played there, pretending like we were in Sailor Moon and such. The 4 of us were playing there after school one day, chatting about this and that, and I think it was around 4 p.m. Suddenly, one of my friends said, "If I don't go home early, my parents will get angry." Normally, we all went home around 5 p.m., when the speakers at the nearby park started playing Yu Yake Koyake. So we asked him why he had to go home early. "Well, you know how that girl was approached by old Man Gongon, right?" he said in a hushed voice. "Well, it happened here, on this mountain." We were all shocked. For sure, there was an unpaved path on the mountain that led from the residential area to the national highway, making it a shortcut. "So, my mum said that I can't go near the mountain, and I told her that I'd just play at school and then go home. If I'm late, she'll find out that I was lying." Finally, we understood why, but I still wished he had told us this sooner. We all grew worried, and so we decided to go home for the day. We also agreed to only play in the schoolyard for a while after that, and then we all went back down the mountain. We nervously walked down the path that old Man Gongon was said to have appeared on. It was so narrow that we had to walk in single file. Then, suddenly, we heard a voice coming from our secret base. You know those trucks that used to drive around selling bamboo poles, and they would yell, "Saudake!" Well, the voice sounded just like the final "Ke" from that. It no doubt came from a fully grown man. Of course, those trucks with the bamboo wouldn't have been able to reach our secret base on the mountain, and the voice was too close to have come from behind the mountain. It didn't sound like it was coming through a loudspeaker either. Once again, we heard a scream like, "Eh!" and all of us began to panic. I'm not sure how we got off the mountain after that. I just remember running as fast as I could, so fast I forgot to breathe, and I felt like I was dying. Somehow we made it home, but we were all still panicking. I ran inside crying, and there was a big fuss at all of our houses, so everyone ended up getting together and, for the first time in my life, we went to see the police. They took our statements on what happened. After that, our parents, teachers, and the police tried to console us, but we were also strictly told off, and they made us promise to abandon our secret base on the mountain. Before long, talk of the suspicious person around town died off, and it ended up going unsolved. The mountain with our secret base was made off limits, and a few years later, a new road was built, so most of the mountain was cut down to make way for it. Apparently, more kids than we realized used that mountain path as a shortcut, and lots of them had been approached by a stranger up there. The four of us never really spoke about what happened after that, but of course, as the years passed, I never went back near that mountain again. A woman briefly returns to her hometown and spends some time with old friends. But while they're out at karaoke, she notices something odd and terrifying in the toilets. What on earth is going on? Find out in Blood Covered. This happened just last night, and to be honest, I haven't really sorted everything out yet. If there are any strange parts, I apologize. Yesterday, I saw some of my high school friends for the first time in a while, and we went out for some drinks. I moved to a different city, so it's been 6 months since I last saw everyone. As such, I didn't want to go home too early, so I hung out with a few friends until morning singing karaoke. The karaoke place near the bar was expensive, so we went to a different one near the station. This particular place is a famous entertainment district in northern Japan. At first, everyone was full of energy, but around 3 a.m, we started to wear down, so everyone kicked back to chat. This went on for the next 2 hours, and around 5 a.m, I stood up to go to the toilet alone. We were in the corner room, and To get to the toilets, I'd have to walk past most of the others. At this point, I had a strange thought. The day before was a Friday, so the place was packed with people. But when I went to the toilet earlier, our floor was practically empty. And when I checked this time, there wasn't a single person around. In our hometown, the first trains left at 6 a.m, so it was still a little too early for me to leave. Well, at the time, I didn't think much more of it. But when I entered the toilets, I was shocked. The floor in front of one of the stalls was covered in blood. There were 2 stalls, and the floor in front of the first one had a trail of blood. It looked like it had been wiped after the fact, not like it had just landed there like that. At any rate, I went into the stall that didn't have blood in front of it. If you're a woman, then you'd understand that sometimes you might find blood in the toilets. Generally, you might find this inside the stall and not in front of it, but I tried convincing myself that maybe it was just a really heavy day for someone. Once I was done, I carefully avoided the blood on the floor and went to wash my hands. As I was about to leave, I looked at the other stall door and realized someone was in there. I didn't hear anyone coming in while I was in the other one, and I was sure the toilets were empty when I came in as well. But I didn't hear any sound. After thinking it over, I knocked on the door. The door didn't open. So there was somebody in there then. Maybe she didn't feel well, I thought, and then left. When I stepped outside, I was even more speechless. There was a trail of blood extending from the toilets. It might sound a little cliché, but it looked like somebody had been dragged from them. That blood trail continued all the way to the elevator. It was strange that I didn't notice it before I went in. Naturally, I grew frightened, so I rushed back to our room. I passed one of the part-timers on the way. He had a mop in hand, but he was cleaning the rooms and paid no attention to the blood. I should have just asked him what happened, but the only thing on my mind was telling my friends what I had seen. When I got back and told them about the blood, one of my friends said it was probably the result of a fight. I had considered that possibility as well, but it was still a lot of blood for a fight. There was just way too much. "I'm gonna go to the toilet too," another friend said after that, and then left the room. About 10 minutes passed, and then she came back. "I've inspected the scene," she said. She said the first toilet stall was empty, but there was an incredible amount of blood inside. And she said, other than our group, there were only 3 other groups left on the entire floor. I was creeped out, but the first train would be leaving soon, so I decided it was time to go either way. We went downstairs, paid the bill, and I asked the person at the register what had happened. Yet he only gave a vague response and said he didn't really know. That didn't feel good enough for me, so I asked another worker, not a part-timer, in a suit about it. A guest injured themselves with a wine glass. But they're okay now, so please, do come back again, he said. The staff lined up by the exit and gave us a warm send-off as we left. My friend said they never acted like that, so something was definitely up. I agreed. First, would a cut from a wine glass really leave that much blood? Second, if that were true, why would they leave the blood there like it was nothing? Why wouldn't they clean it up? Most people working in the service industry would do whatever it takes to make sure that customers aren't disturbed by something like that. And what happened to the many other customers? Did they leave despite the fact it was too early for the first train, or did they perhaps go to the police I was curious, so I looked into it, but I wasn't able to find anything in the newspapers about what happened. So in the end, I decided that someone must have killed themselves in there. And lastly, just who was it in that bloody toilet? Maybe this wasn't very scary, but I really do wonder what happened there. The couple in this next story are enjoying a walk one night when they stumble across something that will change their lives forever. Find out what in Monkey Bars. This happened 1 year ago. I was walking down a street in Kanagawa with my girlfriend around 9 p.m. We were tired from all the walking, so we decided to sit somewhere to take a rest. We looked for a park, and there was one just up ahead. It was dimly lit and right next to a straight, narrow street. But although we could see the park, no matter how much we walked, we couldn't reach it. At that point, my girlfriend suddenly stopped. "Hey, there's someone playing on the monkey bars," she said. I have bad eyesight, so I couldn't see very well, but there was definitely somebody there. Finally, after walking for what felt like forever, we reached the park. It was small and rather old, with just a bench, sandpit, and the monkey bars. Just as I was about to sit on the bench, my girlfriend spoke up. "Wait, that person who was on the monkey bars is gone now." She was right. That person was gone. But they had just been there. A chill ran down my spine. Crap. We have to get out of here," my girlfriend said, sounding almost crazed. She grabbed my hand and dragged me back to that same spot where we had first seen the park. I looked behind us as we ran, but I didn't see anybody chasing us. But despite how long it took us to reach the park from that same spot, we got back there in almost an instant. Maybe we just ran that fast. I don't know. We were both out of breath, yet she was still acting crazy. Crap. She kept repeating it over and over. There was nothing I could say in return. Then she started crying and shaking, and I was so scared that I cried too. But then she said something that gave me goosebumps. That person wasn't playing on the monkey bars. They were hanging themselves. All I wanted to do was go home. "Look, for now, let's just go home," I said. And after that, she seemed to slowly return to her senses. We walked down the street towards the station. Our houses were in different directions, so once we got there, we went our separate ways. When she waved at me, there was a smile on her face, so I felt relieved. I took out my phone once I got home and saw she had sent me a message. "I hate people who smoke for fun. You should quit smoking right away." It didn't make any sense. I didn't smoke, and even if I did, the message was still strange. Thinking that maybe she meant to send it to a friend instead, I sent her a reply. "Did you send this to me by mistake?" I got a reply immediately. "I told you not to smoke for fun, didn't I? Now quickly go smoke a cigarette." I was scared. It didn't make any sense, and she never spoke like that. I replied again. "What are you saying? I don't smoke. What's wrong?" Again, she quickly replied. "You're dangerous. You don't smoke? Die." I really didn't understand. I also didn't feel like replying anymore, but I was worried about her, so I sent one more message. "No, really, what's wrong? You're acting weird. I'm tired, so I'm going to bed. The reply came almost immediately. It was too fast. Die in your sleep. I was no longer scared. I thought about calling her, but instead I went straight to bed without showering. When I woke up, there was no message from her. Worried, I called her. She didn't pick up, but it sounded like she was already on the phone. I tried sending her a message, but that didn't go through either. A message came back saying it couldn't be sent. For the next week, 2 weeks, the next month, I tried messaging her, but nothing got through. A year has passed since then. What happened to my girlfriend? I don't know her home address, and I don't really want to go back to that area either. I haven't seen her since that night. This isn't a copy-paste. This really happened to me. I'm trembling as I write this, so bits might sound a little strange. But seriously, what happened? Was it the work of a spirit? It's all so weird. A local tale tells of a house so creepy that no one wants to even go near it. But when a group of friends decide to check it out, well, it turns out the rumors they've heard might just be true. Find out why in That House. This might not be that scary, but it happened in my neighborhood. When I was a junior high student, I used to hang out with 4 or so people. We never really had much to do, so we were always bored. One day, one of those friends said, "Man, I'm bored. You want to go on an adventure?" This was 20 years ago, and we were countryside kids, so this was the kind of thing we used to do back then. We spent our time exploring the nearby forests and such for fun. We were wondering where we should go when someone else then suggested, "Hey, why don't we check out that house?" "Ah, that house. I haven't been there yet," everyone else said. "That house? You mean the one over there?" "Yeah, I heard it's crazy." "All right then, let's check it out." And so we decided to check out that house. That house was a house where a family was said to have killed themselves. Or maybe they all died in a robbery attempt. Or maybe they were spirited away. There were all sorts of rumors surrounding it. Nobody knew the truth, so the local kids basically turned it into a ghost spot. I'd heard of it, but never been there before, so that day I decided to check it out for the first time. Normally, you'd visit such places after dark, but the 5 of us were pretty cowardly, so not a single person said, "Hey, we should go after dark." As such, we went during the middle of the day, when it was bright outside. And well, that place wasn't really all that scary to begin with. There was a well-populated prefectural road nearby, and the house could be found on a smaller road just off the side of that. It wasn't even surrounded by trees or anything. It was just open fields with a great view of everything around it. Well, open fields might be going a little far, but it was pretty open and lonely. Honestly, you could see that house from the prefectural road, so it wasn't really in a scary place. And that meant that us 5 cowards who were too scared to go at night were able to go during the day. At any rate, we all got on our bikes and rode over. We reached the house in about 10 minutes after passing the prefectural road, and then heading down the gravelly path. I thought that house would be one single house, but when we got there, there were 3 in a row. The problem house was the one right in the middle. At a glance, it looked rather new and not like it had been abandoned at all. It was a regular 2-story house with white walls and black roof tiles. This place isn't very scary, I thought. I looked at everyone else to see if they were going to go inside, but they were all just staring at the same spot. I turned to see what they were looking at, and they were all looking at the door. There were some charms or talismans or something stuck to it. All the blood drained from my body. There wasn't anything on the walls or windows, but the front door was absolutely covered in them. From the oldest to the newest, they all said roughly the same thing. Don't open. Don't come inside. Everyone froze looking at them. I think we must have stood there for a good 5 minutes or so. Then someone quietly said, "We should go home now." We all got back on our bikes and pedaled as fast as we could home. The only really strange thing we saw was that front door, but we were still terrified of it. 20 years have passed since then, but that house is still there. The surrounding areas have been developed, and now you can find a large supermarket, some residential areas, etc. But that one corner alone is still an open field with the 3 houses on it. I have a friend who lives nearby, and not too long ago I asked him about that house. "I've never heard about it being put up for sale, nor has anyone tried to buy it," he said. "Nobody knows what happened in that house, but for some reason, it's still there." A group of men out at sea spot something rather strange out on the water. Something perhaps not of this world. What is it? And will they be safe so far from land? Find out in Growing Light. This strange experience happened to me when I was on a boat. Up until now, none of my friends have ever believed me, so I stopped talking about it, and almost forgot about it even. But recently I suddenly remembered what happened, so let me write it down. This all happened about 10 years ago, I think. It was around the start of spring, maybe April or so, I don't really remember. I was on boats here and there around that time period, so my memories are a little fuzzy. I do remember that when I was on watch every night, Comet Hyakutake was about 10 or 20 degrees above the horizon, and you could see it beautifully. So if you look it up, maybe you can narrow down the time period. I was on board as an engineer, handling the machinery on the boat. It was a somewhat special job, but as long as everything was working fine, I didn't really have much to do, so I was put on watch like the other sailors and surveyors. I was on the 0 to 4 watch, which meant midnight to 4 a.m, and then midday to 4 p.m. every day. That meant I was always on watch with the chief mate. I think it was the night we set out of Kaohsiung Harbour in Taiwan. When I took over the watch, the guy before me said, "You might see something glowing on the water, so be careful." He then went straight to mess to have dinner, so I wasn't able to ask him what he meant. The chief mate said the guy on watch from 8 to 12 said the same thing to him, so we were both confused. About 30 minutes into our watch, it started. There were no lights other than the instrument lamps, so it was pretty dark on the bridge. We drank coffee and looked out at the water ahead of us. Then I noticed something twinkling on the horizon. "Hey, do you see something glowing over there?" I said to the chief mate, and he seemed to have noticed it at the same time. "Hey, what is that?" he said. "It looks like it's getting bigger." "Yeah, and doesn't the ship seem to be moving towards it?" "No, doesn't that light look like it's moving towards us?" "But there's nothing on the radar," the chief mate said, fiddling with the knob on the observation range. There's nothing within 10 miles of us other than a fishing boat we just passed. The conversation went a little something like that as we watched the light get bigger and bigger. But the strangest thing was that the light was kind of green, like the water beneath it was glowing, and it sparkled here and there in tune with the waves. After about 30 minutes, the glowing light was close enough for the two of us on the bridge to see it perfectly. We both clearly saw it. Something round and glowing, larger than the ship, sped past us as it hovered around 5 or 10 meters below the sea surface. As it passed us, we were so excited that the captain and the communications officer came up to see what all the fuss was about. They too saw the glowing thing on the water. "Captain, look, there's nothing on the radar." "I can see that. And there's nothing on the Doppler sonar either, huh?" "What on earth is it?" "Whatever it is, it seems to be purposefully avoiding the right side of the ship, so be careful." "But it's beneath the water's surface, right? It's moving by itself?" "Seems that way." The glowing thing did indeed seem to be moving past the right side of the ship with purpose. Out on the sea, it was hard to judge distance as well, but it seemed to be around 100 or 200 meters from the ship. It was close, but not too close. As it passed, we saw a beautiful round green light. All four of us exclaimed in wonder at the sight. And, just like that, the light continued to move away at the same speed. We never figured out what it was, but it was the strangest experience I ever had while I was out at sea. Sticking with the ocean theme, the boy in this next story hears a story from his grandfather, a fisherman, of something odd he saw out on the water one day. Something that still terrifies him to this day. Find out what in Umibozu. My grandfather told me this story. For as long as I could remember, he was a real bona fide fisherman who was always on boats. Because he lived by the sea for most of his life, he always used to tell me how wonderful it was out there, but also how scary it was. Most of the stories he told me were pretty outlandish, like how he once spent 7 days and 7 nights fighting a shark, or how his boat got swept up in a tornado. Listening to the stories he told me as a child, his face red from all the sake he'd drunk, it was just like something straight out of a manga or anime. One day, he told me a scary story with a different, more serious look on his face than usual. He claimed that when he was out fishing with some friends one day, they suddenly ran into something in the middle of the ocean. The sea charts didn't show any reefs or islands in the area, so they found it rather odd. One of his friends jumped into the water to check beneath the boat to see what was going on. To his surprise, he was standing on something, and the water only came up to his waist. My grandfather jumped in as well, and it was the same for him. The water depth was only about 1 meter. He looked around and was still standing at the same height, roughly 20 meters from the boat. One of his friends then dove under the water and saw something lumpy and reddish brown. Was it an undiscovered reef? Unlikely, considering how deep the ocean was out there. Was it the corpse of a whale? No, it was far too big for that. They discussed what the strange thing could be, but then one of them said, "This has to be an Umibozu, right?" An Umibozu, a legendary sea creature long feared by fishermen since old times. Normally, they would have laughed off the suggestion, but it was there right in front of them. Before long, the guy who suggested it was an Umibozu crouched by the front of the boat and then started chanting. My grandfather and the others all followed his lead. Inside, my grandfather desperately prayed that he could return home safely. Perhaps their praying worked, as before long there was a large tremor and the boat started shaking. Then, the large thing the boat had gotten stuck on disappeared without a trace. Overcome with fear, my grandfather and his friends cut their fishing trip short and hurried back to the harbour. They told everyone what they saw, but, of course, no one believed them. They continued fishing in that same area after that, but they never saw that large thing again. Then, my grandfather finished his story with these words. For a while, I wanted to know what that thing was, but in the end, I gave up. Whatever it was, I don't think it's something that we humans should get involved with. Even now, my grandfather always prays before the family's Buddhist altar and the Shinto Kamidana altar before he goes out fishing. He prays for a safe return, a good catch, and to never run into that thing again. And finally, a young man working at a care home with his cousin, a self-proclaimed shaman, hears something one day that starts to make him question his doubts of her. Find out why in My Cousin the Shaman. My cousin is training to be what they call a yuta? A fortune teller? An itako? Some sort of shaman like that. She works in a care home with me, and often you can find her staring at one spot muttering stuff like, "There's a spirit over there. The local kami-sama is angry." Honestly, I don't believe in that sort of stuff, so at first I mostly just ignored her, like, here she goes again. But one day, I arrived at work around 2:30 p.m, and as I looked around the floor at the residence, I noticed that our oldest resident, T-san, was asleep in her wheelchair. Her complexion looked yellowish and she clearly looked different to usual, so I called out her name, but there was no response. Immediately I checked her vitals, but I couldn't find a pulse, nor was she breathing. I asked a colleague to call an ambulance and I started CPR right away. The ambulance soon arrived and they took T-san to the hospital. Neither my colleagues nor I had any experience with a situation like this, so we panicked and weren't sure if we responded appropriately. But in the end, all we could do was pray that she was okay. Later, however, we received a call from the hospital that T-san had passed away. I was shocked, but she was quite old, so I understood that it wasn't all that strange either. My cousin came into work after that, and when I told her what happened, she was like, "Oh, I see. I'm so sorry you had to go through that." I got back to work, but honestly, I didn't get much done after that. I took a break with my cousin, just the two of us, and then she started saying something strange. "T-san's in pain." Oh, there she goes again, I thought. "Don't talk like that," I said to her. But she continued, her expression serious. "That wasn't a natural death. I think she choked. There was probably something stuck in her throat." Lunch was served at the care home from midday to 1 p.m, and then snack time at 3 p.m. When I found T-san, it was 2:30. Quite some time had passed since lunch, and one of my colleagues said they saw her just 10 minutes before I found her, and she was fine. So I didn't even consider that she might have choked. My cousin continued. "No doubt about it. I can hear her pained voice." "No way," I said. I didn't believe her at all and tried to ignore it, but she insisted. "It's true," she said, before getting up and returning to work. 2 hours later, the police contacted me. We found food remnants in T-san's lungs and organs. There's a possibility that she was asphyxiated, so we'd like to interview you. I got goosebumps. How did my cousin, who wasn't there and only heard about it from me, know the cause of death? I can't help but wonder when I think about it. Did she really hear T-san's voice? A huge thank you and shout out to this week's Cummy tier members, Christina, Just Sawn and Estash. It's thanks to your support, along with everyone else, that I'm able to keep doing this show, so thank you very much. Don't forget to check out Kowabana Volume 13, out on Amazon right now, and check out our newly revamped merchandise store at kowabana.store. And if you'd like to chat about this week's stories, come and join us in the Kowabana Discord. You can find that link in the description or on kowabana.net. You can also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/TaraADevlin for exclusive bonus stories and extras, or our YouTube channel at youtube.com/KowabanaJapan for all sorts of Japanese horror you won't find anywhere else. Thanks guys, stay safe, and I'll see you again next time for even more Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. Want even more scary stories? Head over to kowabana.net for new translations every week. You can also join our Patreon for exclusive stories you won't find anywhere else. Head over to kowabana.net now.